Hello there and welcome to the Fast Forward Show. Question, have you ever been rejected for a job? Not many of us haven't in the past. If you have, you'll understand how frustrating, how disappointing it is, especially after you've gone through a long, grueling interview process, and especially if you don't get much feedback. Well, I've invited Luke Warren here, CEO of Kinetic Software, to share his experience of when he joined Kinetic. Well, when he first tried to join Kinetic, he was actually turned down for the first position. Welcome, Luke. Thanks for coming back to us.
Hi, Louisa.
How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. As I say, thanks ever so much for coming back to be our guest. You've had an amazing career to date, CEO of the UK's leading student and event accommodation software provider to the higher education sector. That's a mouthful. Yes. 4 promotions in 4 years, but like most of us, you know, you've had some rejections on the way, and you were actually turned down for the first job that you went for at Kinetic. So tell me, how disappointing was it for you to receive that news?
Yeah, to be honest, Louisa, I had a few roles on the table at the time, and I had yeses from all of them apart from Kinetic, and Kinetic was the one I really wanted. So it was disappointing for me, but I also completely understood their reasons. I got into the final 2 with a candidate who was clearly very capable, very competent, with a good track record. The difference between us 2 was that he had done the taking over of sales teams multiple times, whereas I had only done it once at a prior business. So it came down at the end of the day to a decision based on experience and who had done what they were asking for the most, and that wasn't me. So yeah, it was really disappointing not to get the role that I really wanted, but I fondly believe that every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. So I pushed extremely hard on the business leader at the time for feedback and help and assistance in what I could do differently, because I can't buy experience. I have to kind of, you know, earn it, you could say. So it wasn't something I could just click my fingers and change. So what tangible feedback could you give me that would help me secure a role just like this one elsewhere? And it took me a few attempts to really get what I was looking for. And I think what's ironic in all of this is it was that persistence that then drew them back to me when it didn't essentially work out with the candidate who was successful.
Brilliant. So you actually followed up to get that feedback that you were looking for. And in the end, it was actually that behavior that got you a position with Kinetic ultimately.
Yeah, and that wasn't my intent. Actually, I'd invested a lot of time, as had they, in the interview process. And I felt like I just wasn't satisfied with the level of feedback that I was given. And I wanted more and more and more. And they were very giving with their feedback over a number of occasions of me asking for more and more. But I kind of got to the end of that process and felt satisfied that it was good use of time. I'd learned something about how I could almost improve my approach in the next interview, because I couldn't buy experience. I had to kind of navigate around it. So yeah.
That's interesting. You said that you learned something about how you might approach it in the next interview. So what were your key learnings from that?
Yeah, I suppose it was to really be very upfront and sell it as a positive. So rather than it just being a matter of fact that, yes, I have done the job you're asking for, I've done it just once elsewhere, and I'm up against people who have done it multiple times, it was actually coming at it from a new angle of, are you just going to get what you've always got with that candidate who's done it 6, 7 times elsewhere? Whereas with me, I'm very moldable. I've certainly done it elsewhere. I have a great track record, which is provable. I could demonstrate a great track record, but I was still in that part of my career where I'm kind of all ears, really kind of active listening, researching, reading books, trying to figure out how, what other tactics and what other methodologies I could learn and implement in the businesses I worked in. So it was just really trying to separate out that, yes, there are benefits for lots of experience, but actually there are also benefits to not a lot of experience. And that's that moldability piece.
That's great feedback, actually, for anyone that's listening that might be in the same situation. So thank you for that. And we've touched on it previously. What a great career you have had, especially at Kinetic, 4 promotions in the last 4 years. So I bet they're feeling very lucky that they did actually give you the job in the end. After
I hope so.
what you've done. And actually, you have done incredibly well. And we touched on previously the fact that some people are surprised that you're in the position that you're in at such a young age, or what they perceive to be such a young age, because you do have these lovely, youthful, boyish, young looks about you, if you don't mind me saying. And you said you've come across this before where some people just don't believe you're in the position that you're in. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, I actually had an experience really recently within the last couple of weeks. So I was speaking to a leader of a purchasing consortium, and we honestly spent the first 10 minutes him asking the same question in 10 different ways to figure out whether I was the decision maker at Kinetic. The title didn't do it. Me expressing my responsibility as CEO didn't do it. He just wasn't satisfied. And I have to be honest, I find it really frustrating. And I think we're seeing so much less of this nowadays in the business world. For me, you're either good enough or you're not. It's not a case of being old enough. It's a case of being good enough. Do I have the experience, the track record? Can I prove that? Am I eager to learn still? I suppose those are the fundamentals that I think employers should focus on rather than age. Just another, I suppose, small story for you, Louisa. I met with an incredibly talented sales professional about a month ago now, and he wants to leave the organization he's currently at. He's one of their best performers. He has mentored an awesome number of other sales professionals in the business. He also wrote their onboarding program because I didn't have one. And yet when he went for a leadership position, honestly, the reason he was told he didn't get it was because the guy he went up against was older. But this guy has not mentored people. He has not performed the way that the person I met has. So to come down to age rather than capability, I find that embarrassing. So for me, you're either good enough or you're not. It's not being old enough. It's about being good enough.
Yeah, and I wonder and I totally agree with the sentiment around that. And I think, if companies can ensure that that's the way they see it when they do bring people in or promote internally, that's the best way, on merit, on performance, on ability. But I wonder also how much of it is being worried about upsetting the apple cart, in terms of other people there that have been there longer. And I wonder how many companies just don't want to upset their existing employees. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe that's the case. There is probably something to be said for upsetting the apple cart sometimes, particularly if the business is in a position where it's only got slow growth or maybe even no growth. Then upsetting the apple cart is probably exactly the thing you want to do. So I suppose it's probably subjective and situational to the environment concerned. But yes, but personally, I couldn't see myself in a business where you waited your turn.
No.
That's not a business that would appeal to me at all. Again, probably said it 6 or 7 times now. It's about being good enough.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, thank you, Luke. That's been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
No, you're welcome.
With us. And best of luck for the future.
Thanks, Louisa.